Welcome to episode number 17 of Short Stories by J. Mill. This episode is entitled Blame the Daddy Genes. I admit that I made many mistakes as a father. My wife will readily and enthusiastically confirm that fact. According to her, I never outgrew my childhood and recklessly created playful situations that put all four of our children in danger, from which she rescued them to avoid certain calamity. I prefer to believe I provided learning experiences that never caused serious bodily injury. But for over 50 years, I tried to convince her that it wasn't my fault. I argued, it's how I was raised. It's in my genes, like father, like son. That was a weak defense then, and it didn't improve over the years. But that's all I had, and that is what this story is about. It started before I started school. It may be a bit vague. Like most people, I got some of Daddy's genes at birth in 1949, but he molded them into who I became on a farm and ranch operation in the rolling plains of West Texas. It was a family farm. My dad needed reliable farm labor. Not understanding that I had already been conscripted to service at birth, I applied, and to my surprise, I was hired on an ad hoc basis, meaning I got to help when my older brother was not available. On a family farm, it was customary in the 1950s and 60s that the whole family provided labor to run the farm. I was usually activated to duty helping Dad feed the cows in the winter, or following him in the pickup when he moved equipment from one field to another. Sometimes I got to just ride along for the experience. Dad always says, you don't get paid for helping in money. You get paid in experience. I was thrilled. I believed it was worthwhile, even if it occasionally flirted with personal safety. To understand that, you need to know my dad. My dad piloted B-24 heavy bombers in the Army Air Corps. The war ended before he was deployed overseas, and upon discharge he returned home and became a father, like his father. Dad loved the farm. His farming skills were respected in the community. He was also a good businessman and acquired land of his own and ran Angus cattle. He was a man of strong character and a good judge of it in other people. He referred to us as workers rather than helpers. Workers are not always helpful, he would say. They are a dime a dozen. Helpful workers, on the other hand, are valuable, and that's what I want you to be. I frequently challenged that definition. Dad was a hard worker. He was up at dawn, worked all day in a fast trot, and quit when the sun enticed the eyelid of heaven to slowly convert daylight to dark with intervening displays of colorful splendor. Dad was also strong. Although standing only 5 feet 10 inches tall, his muscular body was evenly proportioned, leaving no doubt of his athletic abilities. We witnessed that trait later as we grew, trying to catch and survive his underhand pitches that won him acclaim as a softball fast-pitch baseball player in the service. We played basketball behind the house and marveled at his accuracy to make goals using an antique precursor to the jump shot. We stood in awe after emptying our shotguns to witness him raise his 12-gauge long-barrel Browning shotgun and bag the quail, which had escaped our barrage of pellets seconds before it vanished from sight. Dad taught us valuable lessons, such as, if 1 is good, 2 is twice as good. You can't get a nut on a bolt too tight unless you break it. Do not put off until tomorrow what you should have done yesterday. It's better to do something wrong yourself several times than to hire someone to do it wrong once. At least then you will know how to fix it. Work cattle early in the morning. Plow fields from early in the morning until it's too dark to see your work. Cleaning out the chicken house, cattle guards, and digging post holes manually builds character. Always use a strong piece of bodark to build a dead man on a fence corner. A good education will give you options. And his favorite, get up and hurry up. When we went places with Dad in the old 1949 Chevy pickup, he let us ride in the bed. That's also known as the cargo area of the truck. If we were on a paved or county dirt road, we had to sit down in the back. A different rule usually applied if we were bumping around over the pasture or turning rows of a cultivated field. Under those circumstances, we were permitted to sit on the side of the truck bed or on the tailgate if it was down. On more than one occasion, I fell or bounced out of the bed of the pickup onto the ground. But that was only occasionally. That mostly happened when the rides got salty, like if we were chasing a cow or a covey of blue quail across the pasture, trying to get a second shot at an escaping coyote, or rapidly accelerating to make it across a sandy spot or through a patch of thick shinry oak. On one occasion, when we were traveling along a sandy trail next to a fence line at Deer Lake, I fell out of the bed, and the truck ran over the calf of my leg. I hollered. Dad stopped once we cleared the sandy spot in the trail. Aggravated, he had to stop. He examined my leg. Luckily, we were in deep sand, which cushioned the weight of the truck and spared any injury. He rubbed my head and said, "You'll live," as he lifted me back into the bed of the truck while scolding me for not holding on tighter. Those kinds of experiences were common, but we survived and learned lessons from each experience. Dad also taught us to operate machinery at an early age. I can remember driving the pickup in the pasture while Dad tossed out hay or cottonseed cake from the bed of the truck. I had to stand up to reach the brake, the clutch, and the accelerator pedal to make the truck stop or go faster. Dad put the truck in granny gear, also known as compound gear. I sat on my knees to see above the dashboard to steer the truck. It would rumble along at a slow speed without depressing the accelerator pedal. To stop, I stood on the floorboard and put one foot on the clutch and one foot on the brake, causing my back to rest on the front crest of the seat. That put me well below the dashboard, with only clouds visible through the windshield. It rarely resulted in a smooth stop. Most of the time, I couldn't get both pedals pushed far enough at the same time, causing the truck to lurch, killing the engine. Sometimes causing Daddy to fall against the back of the truck cab when it lurched to a sudden stop. If not, Daddy would hop in and stomp the clutch and take it out of gear. My job was to get out of his way before we ran over a mesquite tree, fence, or into a creek. Either way, it did not make Daddy happy, but together we got the job done. Fast forward to a time not too many years ago when I still had hair, energy, and young children of my own. I am now the father who invited his 9-year-old daughter to back our car out of the garage alone. I was standing next to the car. Before you start condemning me, she and my other children had been under my driving tutelage for many years by that time. I began their training when they could fit inside the steering wheel, a system that worked well until confronted with a 90-degree or greater turn. and then it just meant we had to slow down a little bit. I felt that on this occasion she was well prepared to successfully complete that task. And she did. It was a learning experience, like my father had with me. Unfortunately, instead of putting the car into neutral after backing it out of the garage, she accidentally put it back into drive. It lurched forward and she panicked and stepped on the accelerator instead of the brake. Predictably, that returned the car into the side of the garage. Bricks crumbled as the car continued further into the garage until it slammed into the refrigerator at the front of the garage. Fortunately, the scared child took her foot off the accelerator and put it on the brake long enough for me to take control. I quickly hopped into the car, stopped it, and then backed it onto the driveway. Her mother heard the loud, disturbing collision and rushed, horror-stricken, into the garage. Upon my wife's arrival, my poor daughter was at a level DEFCON 5 meltdown. I tried to console her. I told her it was not her fault and that I should not have invited her to do it. I assured her that I had confidence she could do it, but that I should have been in the car with her. But my wife summarily brushed me aside as the evil one, while strongly agreeing that I was at fault. The look she gave me could have wilted a cactus plant. I stayed with them, and we both consoled our daughter, and she finally calmed down. I felt bad. That emotion was encouraged by both of those present, and rightfully so. Several minutes after the crash, as the dust cleared and while we all stood together in silence, except for my daughter's whimpering, surveying the scene of the disaster, the refrigerator door suddenly and unexpectedly wiggled slightly before it fell completely off onto the garage floor. Like a dying rabbit, it flopped and wobbled on the garage floor until death quieted its soul, and it lay silent. Then there was another brief period of silence, followed by smoke spewing from my wife's lovely ears as she wrapped our daughter in her arms and escorted her into the house. Well, to this day, my daughter blames all her life's problems on that incident. Well, that and the time I forgot to eat lunch with her at the elementary school cafeteria. Despite it all, she sure did turn out good. And she is a good driver, teacher, mother, and wife with 2 beautiful children of her own, and a husband and father whose teaching methods sometimes force her to prove that she has her mother's genes. A father's shoulders carry a heavy burden, thanks to his father's genes. Thank you.